Revealed, my inspiring comeback after being locked in a freezer by my daughter-in-law for $99 million. Doug sat on the icy floor of the freezer, the cold gnawing at his bones, a bone-chilling reminder of his current situation. It was an absurd reality his own daughter-in-law, Jenna, had locked him in here, all while dreaming of the $99 million legacy of his once thriving construction business. In this sterile prison, he felt the weight of humiliation. Family, once a sanctuary, had become a battlefield. He had secured his family's financial fate, but now they wished to erase him. It burned like ice in his veins. What stung most was knowing Tim, his son, had been pulled into Jenna's ambitions. Did he support this betrayal? Doug's mind raced through memories of Sunday dinners overflowing with laughter, the warmth that filled their home in those better days. Now, the emptiness rivaled the frigid air surrounding him. The juxtaposition of love and greed twisted in his gut. Was family loyalty worth more than ambition? Or had his failures penned their betrayal? As the chill intensified, Doug's thoughts shifted to his talent, an unrecognized architect hidden beneath the layers of his business aspirations, waiting to break free. The known architect and businessman had dimmed under the relentless pursuit of profit and prestige. In this icy cell, he had the clarity to confront something deeper. He felt a flicker of determination begin to pulse within him. He was in here, yes, but he needed to do more than plot revenge against Jenna. He thought about outreach, about the potential he had to redefine his family's legacy not just for wealth, but for community good. However, fear coiled tightly around his ambition like frost in the air. Could he escape this metaphorical and physical prison? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Panic surged as he contemplated the larger implications of Tim's divided loyalties. Would he stand by his father, or align with a wife whose ambition threatened to crush them both? The walls of the freezer felt like they were closing in, squeezing him not just physically but emotionally. Each second felt heavier. He desperately questioned whether the very values he once instilled had turned his son against him. Doubt gnawed, stealing any remaining warmth. When the door finally creaked open, it wasn't a breath of fresh air that met him, but Jenna's smug grin. The tension between them crackled. She wasn't just a rival, she was family, and that complicated everything. As Tim's shadow appeared behind her, Doug's heart sank even deeper. Would they support him? Or reinforce this insurmountable divide? Standing there, drenched in cold sweat, he felt that the legacy of the family business might not just unravel, it could shatter everything. With newfound resolve, Doug prepared to fight, not with vengeance, but a vision, a blueprint for redemption, even if it meant confronting Jenna's ruthless ambitions. As he emerged from the freezer, the stakes surged higher. The battle for his soul had only just begun. Would he reclaim dignity and fight for the family he once cherished? Or was ambition, like frost covering grass, destined to extinguish the warmth of blood ties forever? Emerging from the freezer's constrictive cold, Doug faced Jenna with a resolve that surprised even him. Her condescending smile vanished when she saw the fire igniting in his eyes, a glimmer of his former self returning. He couldn't let the oppressive bitterness overtake him. Instead, he would use it as fuel for a transformative path. Why, Jenna? Why resort to this? You're tearing apart a family for money? His voice came out steadier than he anticipated. The emotions coursing through him, betrayal, disappointment, but also defiance, created a complex cocktail of purpose. Jenna tilted her head, feigning innocence, and replied, "Don't act so shocked, Doug. You locked us into your outdated ways for too long. It's time for change. You think your greed is change?" His heart raced, the line between anger and passion blurring. Tim stepped forward, his expression a mixture of confusion and concern. "Is this really the way to handle things, Mom?" Silence enveloped them, a conflicted air swirling with unspoken truths. Doug felt the once gaping rift of intention close ever so slightly. He realized that merely blaming Jenna wouldn't mend the relationship he struggled to uphold with his son. The confrontation reshaped into something deeper. "I know I've made mistakes, but I also see now that I haven't inspired you the way a father should. You have ambition too, Tim, don't let her shadow that. Find your direction, your passion." The words came more easily as he navigated his own revelations. Jenna's scoff cut through the moment, but Doug held firm. Rather than letting her dismiss him with her cynical criticism, he chose to focus on Tim. "Together, we can redefine our legacy. Not for wealth but for something meaningful." At that moment, Doug no longer felt like the man who had been trapped in frigid despair. He felt lighter, as if each breath was laced with newfound possibility. He recalled his architect dreams, the designs once sketched in the fever of passion rather than the rigidity of profit margins. "You know what we need? A project that reflects what we actually stand for. A venture that gives back." "What are you talking about?" Jenna replied, disbelief filling her voice that he ignored her tone, locking eyes with Tim. "Let us focus on affordable housing, something everyone deserves, a tangible way to bridge the gap between ambition and community." The words spilled forth, charged with the realization that this could be his path to redemption both for himself and his family. "This is absurd," Jenna interjected, her brow furrowing with resistance. "Is it?" Doug countered. "When's the last time you felt proud of what we've done? Let us create something worthwhile, a family legacy of compassion, not greed. This could be our best project yet." Tim hesitated, and Doug saw the flicker of his son's concern morph into contemplation. He sensed the weight of the moment, the possibilities teetering in the air. "What if we fail?" Tim finally asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Failure is part of growth, Tim," Doug offered softly. "But letting fear dictate our choices will lead us nowhere." Jenna crossed her arms, simmering with indignation. "So, you two will throw away everything I've built for some misguided ideal? Misguided? Or groundbreaking?" Doug challenged gently, sensing he was gaining ground. As a moment of quiet descended, Doug allowed a sliver of hope to pierce through the tension. Perhaps this was the pivotal shift he needed, a chance to reclaim not just his place as patriarch but to inspire his son with dreams that transcended material pursuit. Feeling the momentum growing, Doug knew the time for decisive action was at hand. "Let us lay out a plan, something tangible. This could be our turning point." By embracing conflict, Doug was creating dialogue, not only paving a way for healing but also fostering a profound professional rebirth that could guide their next steps, one that embraced family, community, and values. It was time to chart the framework of their dream. The moment of truth had arrived. Would Tim join him in this endeavor, or would Doug fight the tides alone? As Doug cast a glance at Jenna, he felt the room heat up, a palpable tension brimming as he awaited Tim's answer. Would they step into the unknown together, or would ambition once again set them alight? Doug's heart thudded in his chest, the silence stretching as he locked eyes with Tim, searching for any trace of agreement. Tim's brow furrowed, the adolescent struggle between loyalty and ambition waging war within him. Doug could practically feel the weight of the decision poised at the edge of his son's tongue. "Tim," Doug prompted, his tone softer. "This isn't just about us or what your mother has built. Think about what we can truly accomplish together." He could see the flicker of his son's doubt, but also the light of curiosity slowly igniting. Jenna's impatience crackled in the air. "You're both delusional. You've lost sight of what's necessary to thrive in this world." It was like watching a storm gather, and Doug knew that he had to stay calm amongst the rising chaos. He focused on Tim again. "It's about building something stronger than fear or greed. Something that fulfills us and isn't that just the same old idealism." Jenna sneered, interrupting with venom. "You think a few charity projects will erase the family's debt? You're not in touch with reality, Doug." Frustration flickered through Doug's veins. "And you think hoarding wealth will make us happy? When I look at my life now, I realize I don't want riches, I want the legacy of caring," he asserted, voice steady despite the tumultuous feelings coursing through him. Finally, Tim cleared his throat, eyes darting away from his mother and back to Doug. "What if we start small?" he proposed. "Maybe we can explore the idea? A limited project, see how it could work." Doug felt the rush of adrenaline, the kind that surged when followed by conviction. That's the spirit. "Let us find a neighborhood that needs hope, a place we can help rebuild." "Stop right there." Jenna cut him off, her tone sharp as glass. "You think I'm going to let you waste what I've created?" You haven't thought this through. The tension escalated, but Doug held firm. "What you've built, Jenna, it can mean something more. We can merge my vision with your practicality. Together." There it was, the flicker of a bond that could still weave together, interspersed with rising conflicts. Tim nodded slowly, either swayed by Doug's earnestness or the desire to maintain some semblance of connection as he grappled with the frayed edges of their reality. "Let us meet tomorrow, just us, to brainstorm this idea further," Doug said, his heart pounding. A small plan was better than none, and they could foster dialogue along the way. Tim hesitated before replying, "That could work. But Mom needs to be included." "Tim," Doug started, anxious about the notion. "I need you to understand, Jenna won't support this plan. Then there's no future, is there?" Tim's face fell, the weight of familial loyalty settling heavily on his shoulders. Doug clenched his fists, recognition washing over him. The deep-rooted intricacies of their family were not for him to rearrange single-handedly. "Perhaps I can't change her, but you and I can chart our course regardless of that obstacle. This is about us, not just your mom." Jenna's presence loomed, a storm cloud overshadowing their conversation. "You can't just bypass me. I built this family's future. You too will regret this impulsive fantasy. Or you could risk listening," Doug challenged, this time meeting her dark glare. The blend of tension, fear, and vulnerability hung there. "What's there to listen to? This sentimental nonsense?" Jenna huffed, but for the first time, a crack in her armor appeared. As Doug faced her, he realized that while they may be standing on opposing sides, her presence was an enduring reminder of their shared history. What he had thought would be a fierce battle was transmuting into an unexpected exploration. "Tim and I will pursue this together, with or without you," Doug declared, a silent promise echoing in his heart. It would be a leap of faith, but a necessary one. He felt the air change, the potential for growth swirling around. All he needed was to take that first step on this uncharted path, but in the depths of Doug's mind, something deeper stirred, a revelation that reaching for his dream wouldn't just be a project. It would challenge everything they had ever built, demand courage, and reveal strength he had yet to fully discover. With determination ignited, Doug felt something he hadn't anticipated, the urgency of action. This was the point of no return, and decisions would change everything, but would Tim's evolving belief be enough to hold back the waves? Doug vowed to find out. The tough conversations awaited, yet the glimmer of hope pushed him forward. Would they embrace this risk together, or would the shadows of their past pull them back into a rift too deep to bridge? The next day dawned gray and heavy, encapsulating Doug in a somber fog as he stared at the ceiling. The weight of his decision settled heavily on him, each trembling thought echoing off the walls. Tim's words reverberated in his mind. "What if we start small?" It was a flicker of possibility, a fragile ember that could light a fire, but the doubt that loomed was suffocating. He spent the morning pacing the kitchen, circling the notion of a defined purpose. What did he want to achieve? Would starting something without solid backing lead to failure? As he prepared coffee, he caught his reflection in the window and scrutinized the man staring back. He had lost direction, stuck in the mire of media pitches and corporate jargon as he deviated from his values. The phone buzzed against the countertop, and Tim's name lit up the screen. Doug took a deep breath before answering, ready to embrace this nascent partnership. "Hey, let us meet at the coffee shop around the corner," Tim suggested. "I've been thinking." Doug felt a surge of optimism. "Absolutely. I'll be there." Moments later, seated across from Tim, he noted the growing tension in his son's posture. Tim's shoulders were hunched defensively, his fingers fidgeting with the sleeve of his jacket. Doug swallowed hard, reminding himself that this meeting was about potential change. They both had to confront their fears head-on, beginning with Tim's uncertainty about his mother's staunch opposition. "Got your ideas brewing?" Doug asked, trying to strike a balance between encouragement and urgency. Tim paused, collecting his thoughts. "What if we really do start small? I thought maybe we could work with the local school. They had financial issues, and we could focus on a tutoring program or some sports equipment. Something manageable, you know?" That glimmer of hope Doug had felt earlier ignited anew. "I love it. Focusing on education fosters change in a community. It gives kids opportunities. What do we need to make it happen?" Tim's brow furrowed. "Mom's definitely going to have a problem with us using the family name if she's not involved." Doug leaned in, his expression earnest. "Then we'll have to be prepared for that. But our intention matters more than her approval. We want to build something significant, not just salvage scraps." Even as he spoke, a faint ache gnawed at Doug's insides. Was he prepared to challenge Jenna directly? He considered their past conversations filled with frustration and disdain. Their professional lives had been inextricably intertwined, but now it felt like an insurmountable barrier. "But she's not going to let this happen," Tim said, voice wavering slightly. Doug took a moment to collect himself, feeling the subtle sting of resignation creeping in. "True, but we have to weigh our ideas against her opposition. She might surprise us. Maybe if I lay out the impact of our work clearly, she could see the value beyond just profits." Tim nodded slowly, though uncertainty lingered in his eyes. Doug realized that to build something meaningful, he needed more than courage. He required a new approach entirely. This would be an exercise in patience, diplomacy, and perhaps even an unsettling introspection. Driven to action, Doug set a clear goal. He would draft a proposal outlining their mission, focusing on the tangible benefits of their idea, harnessing facts rather than emotions. This wouldn't just be about disagreement, it would be about showcasing potential societal change. As they finalized their plan, Doug felt the first glimmers of a strategy emerging from chaos. It was as if the lingering shadows of doubt were receding before the dawn of determination. Tim's confidence seemed to strengthen, and Doug couldn't help but feel a growing resolve to embrace whatever challenge lay ahead. Then came the difficult decision. "We'll invite Jenna to a meeting," Doug declared, resolving to confront the situation head-on. "It's time we face this myth head-on, for your sake, for the project's sake. We have to genuinely show her what we are after." Tim's mouth opened in surprise. "Are you sure, Dad? She's bound to react badly. She's never supported anything that goes against her vision." "I know," Doug replied, a familiar trepidation uncoiling within him. "But if we're serious about this, we can't hide. It's our chance to not only foster this dream but challenge the status quo. We owe it to ourselves." And as Doug exited the cafe, a sentiment rippled through him, a potent blend of anxiety and excitement. There was no turning back now. He was set to confront Jenna with unwavering conviction. It might fracture their family ties or, maybe, mend them in ways he had never imagined. In that moment, he understood that growth stemmed from discomfort and resilience. Just before he rounded the corner, a thought struck him. Was this the moment he had long feared? The time had indeed come to face the reality of their family's dynamics. As he contemplated the crossroads ahead, Doug felt an uneasy shift in the air. Much lay ahead: compromise, conflict, and perhaps a revelation about his own capabilities. Would this endeavor threaten the fragile structure of their family, or could it forge a path to something unexpected? The atmosphere in Doug's office felt thick, almost palpable, as he prepared for the inevitable confrontation with Jenna. He fiddled with the edges of the proposal, subconscious nerves making him question every word he had meticulously chosen. The room was organized to the point of sterility, but he felt engulfed in chaos. It didn't matter how carefully he arranged the papers, he was about to challenge years of conflict. Would his careful planning withstand the emotional storm that was sure to follow? He glanced up at the clock, its ticking a constant reminder of the impending meeting. Tim had called earlier, his voice matching Doug's tension as he asked if they were truly ready. "This is our moment, Dad," Tim had said, an edge of excitement underscoring his unease. The faith in his son encouraged Doug, but doubt still lingered in the corners of his mind, making him question if they were stepping into a maelstrom without a life raft. As he paced, thoughts spiraled around Jen's resistance. With every rotation in the confined space, he felt the weight of his past decisions, compromises made for the sake of harmony that had buried his ambitions. Each encounter with her had been a tense negotiation, drowning in unspoken grievances. If they were to start this new venture, he couldn't afford to slip back into old patterns. Drawing a deep breath, he centered himself and opened the proposal again. Clarity surged through him. This would showcase the heart of their mission to help the community and empower children, providing not just facts, but heartfelt narratives. He envisioned how the tutoring program could transform lives, how each properly equipped team could foster unity and pride, something they sorely needed amid financial strife. The image of Tim, bright-eyed and eager to take on the world, reminded Doug that this endeavor was more than just a project, it was a chance to reconnect as a family. For too long, Doug had allowed external voices, especially Jenna's, dictate his ambitions. As he cultivated this budding idea, he realized he reclaimed a portion of his true self, a self that wanted to create positive change. Unshackled from fear, the door opened, and with it came Jenna, her presence striking like a thunderclap in the clearing silence. She entered, expression inscrutable, a mask honed from years of playing the corporate game. Doug steeled himself, dodging the instinct to retreat under her scrutiny. "We need to talk," he stated firmly, though his voice quivered slightly at the edges. "I know," Jenna replied, her tone flat, dissecting him with well-practiced indifference. "Tim told me about your little plan. You think I'm going to just sit by and support it?" Doug felt the ground beneath him shift. "We believe it's necessary, Jenna. The local school needs help, and we help?" She interrupted, her voice rising. "That name isn't a tool for your whims, Doug. For years you've played it safe, cloaked in corporate subterfuge. Now you want to roll the dice?" He felt a pool of frustration bubble up, threatening to spew over. "It's not whims. This is personal. This is about creating opportunities for kids. I want our family name to stand for something meaningful, not just a for-profit machine." Silence enveloped them, heavy and charged, while Doug's pulse thrummed loudly in his ears. Would her stubbornness prevail over the budding aspirations he and Tim nurtured? This was the bifurcation point. The outcome of this conversation could either shatter their already fragile family ties or forge a new, unified purpose. Jenna's expression twisted as if calculating her next move. "You think you can just reshape this narrative? Everything we've built will crumble if you do this carelessly." There it was, the crux of her fear. But was it her fear or her pride that drove her response? Doug couldn't ignore the sense of determination blooming within him. "I'm not abandoning it, I'm redefining it," he asserted. "We owe it to ourselves to take this step. You have to see that it's more than money, it's about legacy." Expecting a retort, Doug braced himself, but instead, he found Jenna narrow her eyes as if inspecting a crack in his resolve. "Your nostalgia doesn't mean I'll give in," she finally remarked, her voice tinged with defiance, but beneath it, there was a fracture, perhaps a glimmer of doubt as well. "You say you're redefining? Then show me it's more than a fantasy." Seizing the moment, Doug pulled the proposal before her, feeling more than just tension in the room. It was the electric charge of possibilities unfurling. "Then let us start this together. Just look at what we can achieve, the impact this could have." He hoped to dismantle her walls and lay bare his intentions. Now, the stakes were higher, and the time for action was ripe. This was not merely an emotional outpouring but a challenge to their dynastic legacy. As Jenna scanned the document, silence stretched between them like a taut wire ready to snap. Doug felt suspense coil tightly, heart racing, not knowing how she would respond. The potential for transformation hung in the air, fragile yet palpable. Would this be the moment that defined not just their professional lives, but their family, too? The future teetered on the edge while he grappled with one thought. Was he truly ready to confront everything this proposition demanded of him? Doug's heart thundered beneath his shirt as he watched Jenna's brow furrow, her face a canvas of apprehension. Each second stretched mercilessly, the silence hanging heavy like a storm about to break. He could feel the walls of his cherished dreams pressing in on him, the weight of excuses he'd carried for years shifting in the dim light of the office. the proposal lay open before her, a culmination of planning, a tangible embodiment of his hopes. But it represented far more than the words it contained. It was a testament to a lifetime of quiet subservience to Jenna's ambitions, a bold declaration of his intent to redefine not just their professional landscape, but also their familial identity. "Isn't this just another project for you, Doug?" She crossed her arms tightly, as if preparing for a fight rather than a discussion. "You think by slapping a feel-good label on it, you can erase the past? Can't reshape our legacy because you want something different?" The accusation stung, but Doug pushed back against the defensive walls rising inside him. "It's not about erasing the past, it's about building a future where our name holds weight not just in profits, but in impact. For years, I've supported our business model, kept the ship afloat. But it hasn't fulfilled me, it hasn't fulfilled anyone." Jenna's gaze flicked over the proposal again, and Doug seized on that moment of uncertainty, the crack in her facade. He leaned forward, letting intensity fuel his words. "What we're proposing is meaningful. Every child we help represents a life changed. Every family uplifted can redefine our place in this community. I want to be part of that change." For the first time, he saw something shift in her. Was it an ember of curiosity, or merely resistance hardening? He couldn't tell, yet he leaned into this potential breakthrough. The doubt he had carried for so long, wrapped in her expectations, began to dissolve in the face of his emerging purpose. "Legacy isn't built on spreadsheets and quarterly reports, Jenna. It's in the connections we foster, the lives we touch. We can create something authentic together if you're willing," he pressed, each phrase aimed to penetrate the armor she wore. She shifted, chewing her lower lip as her expression underwent a rapid transformation. Doug sensed the ghost of their old arguments, the burdens they both carried that had veiled their potential collaboration. Trust had eroded, and maybe it was time to confront that truth head-on. "I've been afraid you'd just follow through with this without considering the consequences, Doug," she confessed, her voice softer now, a slight crack in her steely demeanor. "You've always been the one to conform." He noticed how she flinched. Her fear was rooted in the chaos of their history together, a reflection of their disparate definitions of success. "I'm stepping out of those shadows," he replied, his tone resolute, mirroring the breakthrough he desperately sought. "I want to challenge the status quo we've relied on for too long. Am I perfect? No. But I'm committed to making a real impact." Jenna released a shaky breath. "You really think we can do this without disrupting the business?" "It's a risky move." "Risky?" "Yes," Doug acknowledged, feeling emboldened. "But risk is what ignites change. Every moment spent avoiding it has cost us our potential." As her eyes met his, he caught a flicker of recognition, perhaps the realization that they could navigate into uncharted territory together. He could see the deliberation racing through her mind. Would she take the leap alongside him? "I need more than words, Doug. Prove that you're not just chasing an ideal this time," she ultimately demanded, her voice regaining that familiar edge. "Show me you're serious." Her challenge ignited a firestorm of possibilities in his mind. This was the juncture where he could unveil the depth of his dedication. The re-envisioning he had touched upon could extend far beyond words. It called for action, evidence, a plan that would speak volumes amidst their prior disappointments. Doug nodded and took a step back. Pulling together his ideas for presentations, metrics, and strategies they could employ, a scope that would transform both their roles and their bond. It was time to set action against intention. "We'll need to present this to the board. To the community," he declared, the path ahead crystallizing before his eyes. "I'm ready because this is not only about us but something greater." Waves of excitement and anxiety spun around him. They could forge a new course, breaking the cycles that had constrained them for decades. Doug allowed himself to visualize success, a thriving initiative that would honor their family name and enact transformation. As Jenna stood before him, the tension no longer felt suffocating, it was pregnant with possibility. He could sense the shadows of their past, but he also perceived the flickering lights of hope shining through. "Let us redefine everything," she finally replied, an edge of determination in her voice. Now, as uncertainty lingered, Doug sensed that they were on the brink of creating something that could reshape their legacy entirely, yet as he formulated his plan, a gut-churning question hovered like a specter. Was he truly prepared to face the fallout from those in his inner circle who might resist their ambitious shift? Doug's fingers drummed lightly against the surface of the desk, a steady rhythm echoing his racing thoughts. He was standing on the edge of a precipice, the promise of change looming ahead, but the pull of the past whispered incessantly. As he gathered his notes and prepped for what would be a pivotal presentation, the weight of potential judgment from board members and family alike began to settle uneasily in his chest. Looking through the project outlines, he contemplated Jenna's skepticism. It was justified, he realized. After years of molding himself to be the supporting actor in her story, how could he expect her to trust his transformation? He acknowledged his past compliance, a passive acceptance of expectations that suffocated his aspirations. Now, though, he was ready to shatter that mold. At least he hoped so. That he dove into his preparations with a fervor. The metrics were clear, the projected impacts, the engaged communities, the benefits they would bring. His ambition had never felt so palpable, the thrill of potential change invigorating him. Yet a visceral fear clutching at his gut reminded him of his vulnerabilities. What if he failed to convince her? What if their associates turned against him, dismissing his vision as a mere fantasy? It wasn't mere anxiety, it was a reckoning with the reality of his ambition. In the midst of his fervent sessions, he began to experience a shift within. Doug uncovered pieces of his hidden competency and innate ability to persuade, a knack for painting vivid futures. The words flowed more easily, ideas crystallized in his mind without hesitation. But he needed more than just words. He needed to embody this new persona, a leader, an agent of change. It was increasingly clear that all eyes would be on him, and he was determined to meet that gaze head-on. On the eve of the board meeting, Doug stood before a mirror, scrutinizing a reflection he barely recognized. The shadows of self-doubt lurked behind his eyes, but resolve began to resolve fear into determination. He practiced his pitch one last time, employing every ounce of conviction he had mustered. Each phrase was charged with meaning, a declaration that he was ready to step into his own light. The day of the presentation dawned, the air taut with unspoken tension. Doug could feel the weight of expectations, his family, Jenna, the board members, all pressing upon him. He took a moment to steady his breathing, focusing on the impact their decisions could yield. As he entered the conference room, he was met with familiar faces, all devoid of any understanding of the journey he had undertaken to arrive here. He exchanged glances with Jenna, her apprehension palpable. Did she see the flame of his newfound purpose flickering within him? When he began to speak, each word felt like a breath of fresh air piercing through his old limits. Doug laid out their vision with fervor, intertwining statistics with personal stories, demonstrating how this initiative was not just a departure from their past but a commitment to their shared future. He recognized the importance of that moment not just as a pitch, but as a vital turning point in his life. The questions came, probing and challenging, and for the first time, Doug engaged without floundering. He addressed each query deftly, grounded in the conviction that this endeavor was a pathway to something beautiful and transformative. As he spoke, he felt the bonds of his previous self dissolve layer by layer. He began to understand that the journey was as vital as the outcome, but as their engagement evolved, Doug sensed the subtle shift in atmosphere. Skepticism lingered, a tense cloud that threatened to overshadow their progress. Just before Jenna spoke, he felt a deep rush of uncertainty. What lay behind her next words could either elevate their dreams or derail everything they had fought to build together. Doug, it's ambitious, but there are still so many unanswered questions. Are you truly ready for the potential fallout? The question reverberated not just in the room, but deep within him, kindling the flickering embers of doubt. What would he choose, to solidify his commitment through calculated risk or retreat to the comfortable shadows of his former self? The answer danced at the edge of his mind, tugging at his very essence, revealing that perhaps the moment had come to face not only his critics but his ultimate self. The silence that followed Jenna's question felt eternal, a stretching moment where time slowed down. Doug's heart raced, yet something within him began to ignite. This was at the critical juncture that he had been rehearsing in his mind for months. The choice lay before him, to retreat or to advance into the unknown, a decision that would shape not just his career, but his identity. That he swallowed hard, the weight of Jenna's gaze intertwining with his own expectations. Ready? He echoed softly, barely above a whisper. The room was still, all eyes trained on him, each listener holding their breath, awaiting his next move. In that crucible of scrutiny, he recognized an opportunity not only to defend his vision but to redefine who he had always allowed himself to be. "Jenna," he began, gathering his resolve, the words forming a tangible essence of his newly found determination. "I know that ambition without preparation can lead to failure, but this isn't just some fantasy. This is a collaborative vision crafted from passion, insight, and the genuine need we all feel for change. I am ready, but it's not just about whether I can handle the fallout. It's about whether we are willing as a team to embrace potential and uncertainty together." He noticed the subtle squint of Jenna's brow as she processed this shift. It was as if he had thrown a lifeline she hadn't expected, drawing her closer rather than pushing her away. The tension slightly relaxed, but questions still hovered in the air. Doug pressed on, zeroing in on details he had uncovered through their collaborative efforts. "We've seen how communities thrive when they are united behind a vision. We possess the tools to nurture growth. We stand on the brink of transformation, moving from mere survival to genuine impact. Yes, there will be challenges, but challenges are the crucibles of progress." Jenna's skepticism softened, the glimmer of understanding in her eyes. Perhaps this Doug was more than just a hesitant partner. This Doug was a visionary with the potential to inspire a movement. As questions continued to pour forth from other board members, each one more intricate than the last, Doug felt himself rising to meet each challenge. He was adept, his learning facilitated by newfound clarity. He realized that with each response, he danced on the razor's edge of his fear, but that fear was an empowering force, no longer a weight dragging him down but an energizing current propelling him forward. Yet still, the specter of doubt haunted him, whispering reminders of the risks inherent in ambition. What if the plans broke apart under real scrutiny? What if he miscalculated the support he thought he had? The possibilities taunted him from the corners of his psyche. As the presentation drew to a close, Doug felt a slight tremor in his hands. The weight of implications resonated heavily in his chest. He had laid himself bare, exposing not just his ideas, but his vulnerabilities. Would they accept this evolved version of him, the one driven by courage and ambition? Before he could spiral into another wave of uncertainty, Jenna stood, a move that captured everyone's attention. "I'll be frank, Doug," she began, her voice steady. "You've presented a compelling vision, but the hard truth is that our immediate stakeholders might not respond in kind. We must be strategic and ready for potential backlash. If you truly believe in this, there's more that needs to be considered." The reality of her words sent a jolt through him. This was not just a battle with his past self anymore, it was an ongoing negotiation with the future they all wanted, and it would demand more than he had ever anticipated. Doug inhaled deeply. "I understand the risks, and I'm prepared. But I cannot do this alone. If you, all of you, are willing to step into the fire with me, we can forge something extraordinary together." His pulse quickened. He had taken hold of a new narrative, one that intertwined his aspirations with the potential of their collective endeavors. But with that newfound resolve came the heavy realization that he had barely scratched the surface of what lay ahead. The tension hung thick in the room, unresolved yet pulsating with possibility. Doug faced Jenna again, waiting for the pivotal response that would either bind them together or fracture their ambitions. What lay in the balance now was more than just a proposal. It was a test of their identities and their hopes, a challenge that held the promise of growth or the threat of collapse. But what if this isn't enough? He thought, a creeping sense of urgency washing over him as he prepared to confront the reality of their decision. Doug's breath hitched as he awaited Jenna's response, the silence becoming a suffocating weight that clung to him. He could feel the expectation of his colleagues, each one anxiously waiting for a verdict that would either herald a new beginning or reinforce their doubts. As he locked eyes with Jenna, he sensed a shift in her demeanor, a subtle transition from skepticism to cautious curiosity. "Data might not faze stakeholders, Doug," she finally replied, her voice steady but edged with concern. "You'll need more than passion. We need a solid plan to back this vision, an actionable strategy that they can't dismiss." Her words resonated deeply within him, awakening a sense of urgency he hadn't fully acknowledged before. This was not just about emotion or vision, it required something tangible, structure, and a clear pathway lined with measurable outcomes. Doug had been diving into uncharted waters, buoyed by enthusiasm, but he realized that navigating these depths required more than just the willingness to leap. He took a moment to process this. The flicker of uncertainty attempted to creep back in, but he chose to confront it. "You're right," he replied, his voice firmer than he felt. "I've focused too much on the vision without articulating the way forward. I need to map out the specifics: what we need, how we'll proceed, and how we can demonstrate our impact." Doug had always visualized transformation in grand strokes, but now it was time to pull back the lens and hone in on the details. The realization ignited a fire within him. This was an opportunity for growth that wasn't limited to the corporate realm. It was about him rising to the occasion, becoming the leader he feared he wasn't. As the discussion turned to brainstorming actionable steps, Doug felt a surge of confidence. He began jotting down key components, timelines, phases, stakeholder engagement strategies. Each bullet point acted as a mini anchor, steadying him against the tide of self-doubt that had once threatened to pull him under. "Let us break it down," Doug suggested, his ideas flowing more freely now. "We can start small, pilot a program that measures immediate impact and gradually expand based on the data we gather. Engaging metrics will aid in allaying skepticism and will help us pivot as needed." As the room started to transform around him, colleagues leaning in, their pens in motion, his confidence swelled. There was something galvanizing about laying out a strategy, watching doubts transform into invested interest. Their enthusiasm mirrored his own growing conviction. However, amidst the burgeoning energy, Doug still felt remnants of apprehension snaking at the edges of his thoughts. What if they still faltered? What if his plans didn't stand up to the scrutiny of numbers and forecasts? Could he truly balance ambition with practicality? He stilled himself. This unknown landscape was as perilous as it was promising outcomes that could reform not just the structure of their company, but also the foundation of his own identity. The challenges ahead were vast, but for the first time in what felt like ages, he was ready to navigate them. By the end of the session, a palpable sense of camaraderie emerged within the team. They would shape this vision together, and Doug sensed the dynamic shifting, less of a solitary pursuit and more of a united front against uncertainty. Yet, even as they drafted the framework and committed to the next steps, a small voice within him whispered the lingering question: how deeply had he truly delved into the source of his ambition? He hadn't fully confronted why success mattered so intensely to him and whether he was willing to pay the cost of vulnerability in pursuing it. As they departed the room, Doug pondered that question, an unsettling awareness unfolding. He wasn't just fighting for a project, he was fighting for clarity in his own life. The evening weighed heavy on him as he continued to wrestle with the intersection of ambition and personal drive. When he looked in the mirror that night, he barely recognized the man staring back. In his search for significance within his career, had he neglected the personal facets that truly defined him? The next day would not merely be about executing plans, it would demand an introspection that could either fortify him or uncover a deeper conflict within. What part of himself was he willing to expose to realize his vision? And how far was he prepared to go in pursuing success? Obtaining the answer to that question was an essential next step, as vital as any strategy the team could draft. Doug knew the following day bore a weight of its own, one that beckoned him toward discovery. The journey was only beginning, more complex and deeply introspective than he had initially navigated. What lay ahead was an exploration of self that would ultimately define what they were about to embark on together. As the days turned into weeks, Doug immersed himself in the heart of his vision. The once distant dream of forging a legacy intertwined with purpose had morphed into a concrete endeavor, one that threatened to redefine not just their business, but the bonds of family itself. Sitting in his office, he distilled his aspirations into actionable item lists, checking them off as progress prompted him forward. One afternoon, as the sun streamed through the windows, warming the previously sterile environment of his office, it became clear to Doug that clarity was blossoming within him. He could feel the contours of ambition reshaping. "This isn't just about a business," he whispered to himself, his fingers brushing the outline of the community impact report he had formulated alongside Tim. "It's about healing." With renewed focus, Doug approached Jenna. "We need to discuss the necessary resources for our project," he initiated, his tone forged in confidence rather than fear. They met in the conference room, the air filled not with tension but the gentle buzz of possibility. Jenna, always poised for battle, now showed a flicker of curiosity. This better not be another abstract ideal, she challenged, but there was an openness in her eyes. Jenna, it's about transformation. I'm not proposing just a method, I'm putting forward a legacy. Here he spread the document before her, is our plan. This is how we'll practice integrity in our endeavors and inspire future generations. As Jenna scanned the document, Doug swelled with hope. He presented metrics and projections but framed them with stories of individuals in the community who would benefit. We become the architects of hope, and in that, we redeem ourselves. For the first time, Doug didn't just hear her skepticism. Instead, he felt the echoes of doubt intermingling with potential support. Jenna's brow furrowed, not just in dismissal, but in contemplation. This could work, but we need to be certain the board will scrutinize every aspect, she responded slowly. We must show them this can yield profit while doing good. Nodding, Doug felt the truth in her assertion. It was a balance they needed to achieve. Then let us prepare a presentation insightful, compelling, and impactful. Numbers matter, but so do lives transformed. It's time we changed the narrative. As they collaborated, Doug felt the air shift. He was not just proving himself to Jenna, he was rebirthing his identity. Each session solidified his rising confidence, making the groundwork more engaging and fortified their familial bond in the process. Finally, the day of the presentation arrived. Doug stood outside the boardroom, pulse quickening, an exhilarating mix of anxiety and resolve flooding through him. The rows of seats positioned towards a central table were filled with familiar faces all ready for his unveiling. As he entered, he felt a sense of gravity. He wasn't selling a business idea, he was weaving a story of their evolution. Taking a deep breath, Doug launched into the details of their proposal, intertwining data with real-life stories exemplifying the potential impact on the community. He presented the metrics with the passion of a man who had finally recognized his worth. The legacy we build is not just ours, it's for everyone. Our ability to fuse profit with purpose will redefine success, moving beyond mere dollars into creating opportunities for generations. Both Jenna and Tim sat at the table, steadfast in their support, reflecting just how far they'd come. The board's atmosphere shifted from skepticism to intrigue as Doug laid out the plan with precision. He watched as eyebrows raised and voices murmured in contemplation the rising tide of acceptance. At the end of his presentation, the room resonated with a palpable energy. Questions came less aggressively and, instead, their phrases aimed at improvement. Doug tackled each inquiry with newfound poise, utilizing their perspectives to fortify his intent. Their past frustrations and hesitance had pivoted to amplified engagement. Eventually, the board signed off on the project. The collective nods from his colleagues and the gleam of understanding in Jenna's eyes cemented the moment into Doug's psyche. He proved they were capable of changing the fabric of their legacy, merging ambition with a cause. Once the meeting concluded, Tim approached Doug with unmistakable pride lighting up his face. "Dad, you were amazing. This is our moment, isn't it?" "Yes, son," Doug replied, an actual grin breaking across his face. "We did this together. We're on the path to not only rebuilding our family name but embracing an opportunity that aligns with our truest selves." As Doug stepped out of the boardroom, he felt an overwhelming wave of fulfillment wash over him. He transformed doubt into action, skepticism into solidarity. He looked forward to facing whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in his capabilities and the fresh-found unity with his family. In that moment, Doug realized he had built more than just a professional legacy. He had reclaimed his identity as a father, a leader, and a visionary capable of inspiring change not just for his family but for the community at large. This definitive achievement, this graceful resurgence from the icy depths of betrayal and despair, was only the beginning. Doug knew that there was much to accomplish, but for the first time in years, he felt grounded, recognized, and ready to face the exhilarating uncertainty of the future. The story of their journey had woven itself into a narrative much broader than ambition. It now encapsulated growth, hope, and the enduring bonds of family. New legacies were on the horizon, and Doug was set to lead the charge with purpose and resolve. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.